Yo, my Star Citizens and Noob Gamers. Welcome back to another episode of Star Citizen with me, Mennings. And in today's episode, I'm going to be going through the Jump Point magazine, but I'm also going to put in what I get as part of my subscription. I just realized not so long back that not everybody gets access to the Jump Point magazine and the stuff, obviously, that comes with this subscription. So I thought I'd do some videos that when the Jump Point magazine comes out, I'll put a video out of the Jump Point magazine and the stuff we got. Now, normally the Jump Point magazine is a monthly thing, but this time they've changed it to a bi-monthly because they want to put more content in it, and the people that put it together are not worrying about getting the magazine out every month. So I'm going to go through that with you. So I have the Centurion pack here, which I pay £10.80 a month for, and then there's also the Imperator version, which is £21 a month. Now what you get with it is you get the Jump Point magazine, first wave PTU access, so basically you can go and test in the PTU, a vehicle of the month, which I'll show you what I've had it now for 3 months. I'll show you what I get. A Fleur, we get one. I get one with a £21 month. You get two, and then you get rental credits each month that can be used in things like Arena Commander and stuff like that. And then the Imperator test flight you don't get with the one I've got, but you do with the other one. And then you get everything else. You get the subscribers den and the early access. You don't get exclusive Imperator events on the one I've got, but you do on the other. But then you get the vault and discounts on merchandise and annual passes, and then coupons. You get 10% on your coupons and 20% on the other one. So I've got this Imperator, this Centurion one, which I do monthly, and I've had now for 3 months. So if I go into what you get, basically what I've had up to yet in the 3 months, and then each time I put out a new one with the Jump Point magazine, I'll show you, because it's bi-monthly, I'll show you what I got as ship of the month in the 2 months and the Fleur that I got in the 2 months, as well as going over the Jump Point and the other stuff that you get. So let's go over this. So the Fleurs I've got in the 3 months I've had it, I got the orange Zeus exploration suit, and I think other people with the other pack, with the £20 pack, got 2 of them. The month before that I got this flag here, which you put on your dash of your ship, and the month before that I got this green orc armor bobblehead that you also put on your dash. So they're the 3 months that I've had: the bobblehead, this flag here, the United Empire of Earth mini flag, and this Zeus exploration suit. Now with the other pack, obviously you get 2, so you would have got 2 flags and 2 bobbleheads, and you know, everything else you can see here, like these are what people would have had in the past. So I'll show you what you basically get with that. And as you see, if I put that into Great British pounds, I pay £10, and it's £13 just for the suit. So basically I paid less for the suit. Instead of paying £13, I paid £10.50. So, and if you got 2 of them for the £20 package, you would have paid, you know, £6 less. So, but obviously with the flags, they're only £4, so you paid £6 basically for your subscription for the ship of the month, and then the same here, you paid £5 more. So you are getting something good from it anyway, your money's worth. So I thought I'd go through that. The ships that I got in the 3 months is, first I got the Ion and the Inferno. So I got this one and the Inferno together. That was the first one I did. Inferno. And this one. So that's the 2 I got originally when my first month. The second month I got the Cutlass Steel, which is a drop ship from, you know, with the Cutlass Meg, and most of you probably know this. And the third thing I got this month, the one I got this month, is the Hoverquad. So basically could play around with that. And I think it resets on the 5th of every month. So the next couple of days or so, I'll get the next one. But the Jump Point magazine won't update by then. So yeah, so you get access to a ship. So it's nice. Sometimes you might get a good ship. Sometimes you might get something you've already got or you're not really keen on. I was a bit disappointed when this one came out because I probably wouldn't have used it as much. So, but you get to keep it for a month, and then obviously you get something different. So that's basically the packages we've got. Now, if I jump to the actual subscription part itself, you also get the stuff in the vault, wallpapers and videos that you can watch as well. But I'm going to show you the vault. And basically, this was the Argo SRV interior. So basically, it's just going through the images of the SRV. So it might be interesting to some people, like getting the wallpapers and stuff like that. Might be, interesting to some people. So there's the Argo SRV itself as the ship. So you get a lot of concept art as well and stuff like that comes up. So I'm going to get into this. I'm going to obviously do chapters in this, so that should make things easier if people want to jump to places. So let's go back to the jump point. So I'm only going to do jump point issue 10/8, which is, I presume, the 10th year, 8th month, which is August. So I'm just going to do this one, and then I'm just going to do the next one when the next one comes out next month. And then it'll be bi-monthly then, so every 2 months. So let's do this. And I'm going to make this full screen. And I know a lot of people can read and would want to shut me up. You can just mute me, maybe. But basically, I'm just going to read through. So basically, it's 2 pages per screen. Jump Point issue 10/8. So you've got the behind the scenes, Alpha 17.2 and beyond, and then Unification Wars. So, from the cockpit, greetings citizens, welcome to August Jump Point. This month we're delving into the development of the latest patch, but first we want to get into the key changes to your subscriber magazine mentioned last month. The short story is Jump Point will be published bi-monthly from now on. The long explanation is that everyone that works on Jump Point does it alongside full-time roles in the marketing, narrative and production teams, and as development ramps up towards Alpha 4.0 and beyond, we're busier than ever. However, we all love working on Jump Point and are immensely proud of what we and those who came before us have put out in the last 9+ years. We don't want you to just rush it out at the end of the month and see quality suffer. We also rely on Star Citizens and Squadron 42 developers' immense knowledge for many of our articles and giving them the additional time to answer our insistent questions. The request means that we can dig deeper into the subjects and even tackle things we've had the opportunity to get into before. Haven't had the opportunity to get in before. Ultimately, we want Jump Point to continue and get better, and the only way to do this is to give it more time. So we're doing one magazine every 2 months, with the next issue in October celebrating a full decade of Star Citizen. But going forward, you can expect more developer content, deeper dives into tech, and usually exclusive narrative content, and a few twists along the way. We currently are planning next 12 months of content and going to be an exciting year in the verse and on these pages. Finally, this is your first issue. You've been here from the beginning whether this is your first issue or you've been here from the beginning with David and you found us somewhere in between with Ben, we want you to thank you for reading and supporting Jump Point. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to cover in the coming issues of Spectrum, which is the forum, and we'll see what we can do. Jump Point team. So that's that. So let's get to the next page. Alpha 317.2 and beyond. So they've got pictures. The Spartan, I think it's the Spartan, or I can't remember what it's called. It'll be in there somewhere. It's the new ground vehicle, Centurion, that's it. And then this is about the 100-player servers and then the Siege of Orison. So introduction, on July 28th, 2022, Alpha 3.17.2 was released onto the live Star Citizen servers, and despite being unnamed Point Pinch, featured some of the more significant content and back-end features this year to date. To find out how Alpha 3.17.2 and the features came to be, we hunted down the questions, the devs that made it possible. So, Alpha 3.17.2 point of interest. First of all, the point patch since the late 2017 Star Citizen Quarter releases have been updated to Alpha 3.0, which gives us some bonuses of the persistent universe we explore today. Each subsequent patch has featured new locations, vehicles, careers, missions, content, and updates to the underlying tech that binds them all together. As we approach Alpha 4.0, the need for similar updates has meant point patches are required to get new gameplay locations and vehicles into the verse, between significant additions to the back end. So here we are with a smaller patch to keep us going with the development of the persistence and the necessary tech barrels on the background. Alpha 3.17.2 won't be the last point patch before the big jump to Pyro, and certainly won't be the last with content as interesting as this. So basically just talking about the 0.2 patch, just adding more stuff in so they can get more stuff in on the main patches as well. So Siege of Orison came with the 17.2. Basically loads of people can go in and do like a mission against AI where the AI 9 tiles have taken over Orison, and you can go in there and you've got to drive them all out and get some codes and do a mission basically. I've not yet done this mission, something I'm going to do in the future. The Siege of Orison. In last month's issue, we delved into the biggest dynamic event to grace the verse, but this would be remiss to not use the opportunity to try and glean what is next for the Siege of Orison. The team that created it, principal systems designer Elliot Maltby, assured us, like everything, we'll get the chance to iterate, improve, and add variations. We don't want to spoil anything directly for you though. So while system designs are remaining tight-lipped, it's safe to say Orison is quite safe yet. Big old picture with the 9 tails taking over Orison there. So behind the scenes, player cap increase. So when I first started playing this, the player cap, I started playing at 3.17.1 and the player cap was 50. And so basically a group of people got together and all got onto one server and invited each other in, and then all got onto this one 890 jump ship and to see how the server would cope. And so that's what this picture's from. Previously capped at 50, Alpha 3.17.2 raises the maximum number of players that can experience the verse together to around 100. The specific numbers fluctuate slightly depending on what's happening in Stanton. We asked Robert Johnson, engineering director of the Persistent Universe, why they chose the latest patch to increase the player cap. He said, "We ended up here because we were at a point in the development where we were particularly focused on the server performance to improve the Siege of Orison experience, and found that running 50 players on 2 game servers on one virtual machine was pretty much equivalent performance-wise to running 100 players on 1 game server on 1 virtual machine." So yeah, some more photos here of that 100-player server. Let's go back. And again. Between performance costs and stability, for example, the more players we have per server, the more damaging a crash is, as it affects more players per occurrence. Also, higher server caps will affect some in-game features and missions balance. So we need to be mindful of making these things scalable as we go. With the increased player cap established and Alpha 3.18 on the horizon, what's next for Johnson and his team? Next is persistent entity streaming in Alpha 3.18 and server meshing beyond that. Where it's important to push on for higher player counts per server so that we can expand the player area in the game. We maintain a decent player density. So like many other key updates to the verse, the 100 player cap is just the beginning of opening up player space for even more players. So what he's talking about there is the persistent entity streaming. So basically, when you put something down and you come off the server and you go back, it should still be there, no matter where you put it, unless somebody's gone and took it themselves. And the server meshing is basically getting all the servers, so they're all basically in the same thing. So the way I would put it is, when you have resources now, you go and buy some Laranite, it goes across all the servers. So if you're on one server and somebody else is on another server and you buy Laranite, they will have a reduction in what they can buy. So server meshing is the same thing. Basically, it's all the servers that they've got out talking to each other, basically, as one. That's the way I see it. Put in the comments if I've maybe got that wrong, and I'll maybe pin the comment if I have. So where are we? Johnson further explains how performance between the two options was so close because the two servers would fight for resources. We'd see more contention, such as delays waiting for operations to complete, then running the same code on the server, as our engine has been steadily made more scalable over time. Removing that contention but adding 50 players ended up being similar in frame time, as we want to get as many players into servers as realistically possible. It made sense to up the player count for this pitch. Besides giving the players more human pilots to fight alongside and against increasing the player cap, came with the benefit of largely nullifying the servers out of memory issues and ultimately simplified how the game is deployed. However, despite the benefits of more players in a single server, simply opening the door to as many as possible wouldn't have worked. Johnson explains that's a fine balance. So yeah, just the pictures of the players who all got together on that server. So here it is, the Centurion. That's what it was. Anvil Centurion. Apparently this is a beast on places like Jumptown. I've not got one myself. Maybe I'll look at getting one. Third in line of Atlas performance-based vehicles, the Anvil Centurion tweaks the formula established by its predecessors to deliver in different yet complementary style of combat. Although an anti-air vehicle like the Ballista, the Centurion swaps the long-range missile load out for a heavy quad laser turret designed for short-range attacks, capable of disintegrating some of the most dangerous vehicles in the verse. It's a boon to any ground attack or defense force. Now, I've seen Citizen K video where they all defended Jumptown and they had a couple of people with these Centurions. Man, what a video that was. I'll put the link in the description. You had a few of these people in Centurions just blasting ships in the sky, and there was this big air battle going on. There was a ground battle going on over Jumptown. Such a good video. I'll link that in the description. So here we are, a couple of Centurions. A couple of people hiding behind Centurions. Does look mean. I don't know how they're that clean though. Although not planned at this inception, the Centurion owes its existence to the Ballista and Atlas platform. Vehicle director John Crew explains, when we originally built the Ballista, we had the idea of the back of our minds that it could be a shared chassis, but no definitive plan to expand it on the point. However, we're built in a way where you could easily adapt the future variants. While the development of the variants is a really simple task of swapping out components or paints, it's fair to say that it takes less development time than all new vehicle. However, it's key to ensure that the areas being kept are fit for the new purpose. When we made the Centurion and Spartan, we started by reviewing which of the three areas a vehicle would stay and which would be altered. We essentially have the front, mid and rear sections, and between the Atlas variants, alter those. The Ballista and the Centurion share primarily front two sections with bespoke rear sections, whereas the Spartan shares the front section and bespoke middle and rear. Absolute animal of a ship or ground vehicle. I'd love to be getting in battles like this. It'd be so good. So that looks like three different types, maybe. Or is it the same type with different paints? I do know. Okay, some more pictures. Really showing this thing off, aren't they? Does look good though. Does look good. We asked what's next for Atlas Chassis. Crew explains, we have nothing planned at this moment to create further variants, but never say never. I've always wanted to do more traditional ground artillery vehicles, and I think the Atlas platform would be perfect for that. So while not holding onto external or internal ship roadmap, well, more Atlas vehicles could be shaking up Star Citizen's ground game at some point. That'd be a good thing, is having some good ground defense. So, some dude with some illegal stuff here. Criminal delivery missions. Want to start a profitable career in hauling, but your less than stellar reputation precedes you at every cargo deck in the system? Alpha 3.17.2's criminal delivery mission give everyone, regardless of mentality, the opportunity to keep the underworld turning by hauling goods across the system, while balancing missions that task players with shifting legal materials around a system that needs them can follow the real world approach of paying for a job well done. It's a little more complicated when your cargo is questionable. We asked Assistant Design Director Dan Truffin how the criminal aspect affects the process, especially when the significant portion of the player base won't want to be eligible to these lucrative black market opportunities. We generally try to balance the rewards of the criminal delivery mission such a way that the risk is taken into account compared to legal delivery missions. For a single mission, a criminal has the potential of making more money, but also has a higher chance of getting captured or killed. Eventually, we try to balance in such a way that when they're playing for a long period of time, days or weeks, the average criminal player ends up making roughly the same amount as a legal one. Obviously, a high-skilled criminal that evades capture or death will make more. One that lacks the skills makes less. While players are confined to the Stanton opportunities for making underhand cash, are always the risk from do-gooding. Advocacy agents acting on behalf of the UEE, but what happens when we eventually emerge from the jump point into the outlaw system of Pyro? Truffin explains how the UEE's absence will affect criminal hauling and gameplay in general. So a lot of more being worked on with the illegal game side of things. Something again I've not looked at and I want to get into and just see how that pans out. So it looks like he's been caught by, I don't know which one this is, the Cutlass Blue. The Cutlass Blue, which is the police one. So you have the Cutlass Red, which is the medical one, Cutlass Steel, which is a dropship, Cutlass Black, which is a gunship type, well, not a gunship, but has the weapons, and then the Cutlass Blue, which is the police one. So you've been caught, mate. You've been caught. Pyro is generally a lawless system, but it doesn't mean there are no rules, just that the law is only enforceable in very few spaces, and only any other part of the system where whoever owns that area space makes the rules. This way you might find yourself on a gang controlled station where the slavery is legal, but that doesn't mean you can't kill gang boss without breaking their rules and eventually getting killed or captured by the gang's goons. That being said, if you manage to exit the gang's territory, your actions will not be considered a crime. So in this aspect, Pyro allows you to play with a lot more shades of grey when it comes to missions. Players will be able to get good reputation with certain gangs, but not others. They will have areas of space where they will be shot on sight, while other factions will embrace them and see them as heroes for deeds that in Stanton may have sent them straight to jail. So the criminal missions introduced to Stanton are just the tip of the entrepreneurial iceberg and gifted pirates and smugglers when asked what's on the immediate horizon. Truffin explains he and the team are currently working on two fronts. First, using existing mission modules to expand existing content with greater diversity, and secondly, working on new mission modules that will drive completely new mission types. Regardless of player style, coming content will both be morally and intact, and corrupt players will have the opportunity to make lucrative living hauling cargo and the verse. So another aspect of the gameplay is just that criminal side of it. Might be good. So where are we at? So Planetary Navigation Mesh. Planetary Navigation Mesh is a complicated feature with clear to see benefits. It allows non-playable characters, NPCs, to move around the planetary locations, to be on foot, flying a ship, driving a ground vehicle. Lead AI programmer Marius Ariani explains why he and his team pushed for this inclusion in Alpha 3.17.2. Obviously, the ability to navigate the planet's surface has always been a fundamental requirement for our game. However, it became a vitally needed feature when we started to discuss the creation of outposts and would highly benefit from having NPC populations. And this feature, in general, opens up a lot of gameplay opportunities. One of which we look forward to is in the presence of fauna in the universe. So alongside the latest patch, continue to add new locations for curious players to explore. Like many of the quarter's features, it tees up the inclusion of one of the most anticipated additions to the wider universe. In the case, the ability to add all manner of unique sentient creatures. But before we get ahead of ourselves and head down a potentially literal rabbit hole, Ariane details the process of adding such complex features to the game, starting with the existing navigation mesh technology. One of the main key elements for the planetary navigation mesh was to reuse the underlying technology of our navigation mesh. This was important because it allows us to keep using the other existing systems and features like the Pathfinder and the navigation links. Another advantage of this is that we would allow a new feature to be transparent to the other systems that interface with the mesh API. For example, we have heavy raycast usage on the navigation mesh in locomotion. This approach makes sure no systems require additional work to allow NPCs to move on the planetary surface. Ariane further explained that the first step of implementation was finding a way to handle terrain physics scaling and depth scalizing as planet comes in and out of existence. For example, as the player approaches a location, it physicalizes to allow them to land and explore. The solution was to construct and navigate mesh from 3D tiles, with the volume dictating alignment and orientation. This was then extended to supply arbitrary title orientation for planet's gravity direction to ensure the titles and therefore NPCs pathing seamlessly extended across the PU's varying terrain and topography. Improvements were also made on how the tiles connected and were distributed on the spherical surfaces. The next stage was improving tile processing to only generate queued patches when NPCs capable of using them were in the area. We implemented a priority queue that keeps track of the actors and the scores, the titles differently based on the players and the NPC's presence. This always tries to give a higher priority to generation around the players so that the world can feel alive quicker wherever our users are. So it looks like some of the dropship stuff and what they're going to have on the new locations of the derelict sites. And with the derelict sites, you can have these dropships come and drop some NPCs off. Although most visible around the recently added crash ship sites, the outpost navigation mesh is also built into the back end of every planetary location, from Stanton's earliest locations to wherever players explore next. NPCs will have the ability to land and traverse wide distances in pursuit of their AI's behavior goals. And it's not only fleshing the world out with realistic life that's made possible by the AI team recent delivery. AI director Francisco Rosusi explains, all the locations can make use of the underlying tech to create new missions and new content to allow players to explore the world and meet more alive entities roaming the planets, and NPCs that could save the fight or support without speaking from the design team. The plans overall to create more content in this type and over time add new features which we're currently working on. While on the topic of currently working on, we asked what's next for the AI team and AI in general. If we look at our schedule, we have a very packed future looking at the AI tech team. The focus is for us for developing functionalities that can enable our other teams to create new content and features. So yeah, this is some of the crash sites and the new derelict sites. Yeah. Ross Horsey was kind enough to detail some of the upcoming work streaming from the implementation of Planetary Navigation Mesh. Navigation links. Navigation links are the information included in the navigation mesh, allowing NPCs to find paths to connect navigation mesh islands. We currently expanded our system to allow them to correctly support mantling, vaulting, ladders, and locker doors. Navigation links can be created in multiple ways, and multiple systems can customize how the connections are created and calculated. This includes whether an NPC should use a specific animation, if the link creates a locomotion connection, or if any additional flow needs to be followed. As an example, a vault can be considered as one-shot animation for the NPC, while using a ladder might require attaching to the ladder, looping through the regular climbing up and down movement, and then playing an exit. The goal here is to allow NPCs to navigate the world using the same abilities players have, while also having a visual quality. Ground vehicles. Another big focus for us is supporting ground vehicles. We want NPCs to be able to drive rovers, cars, forklifts, and anything else that moves on the ground. This will be a great addition to both social and combat, as it will allow peaceful scenarios to feel more alive, but will also give NPCs more options when fighting and escaping dangerous movements. Combat. Across all of the AI teams, we have the large initiative for improving the combat experience in all aspects of the game. This includes the iteration required for stealth combat by allowing perception to be more forgiving and a player that wants to take quieter approach. For example, to achieve this, we're expanding and improving the controls for designers to influence the perception, reaction times, and the accuracy, and the selection of the combat tactics and the traits assigned to the characters. Again, some more photos here, the derelict sites that came this time in this new one. We're also adding a lot of functionalities to allow enemy combatants to use more weapon types, mounted guns, grenades, rocket launchers, etc. Benefit from the medical gameplay loop, heal themselves and or others, and utilize looting loop so they can find more ammo, better weapons, and so on. We're also expanding perception to allow NPCs to perceive characters while in the spaceship, so that combat is expanded to allow ground to vehicle scenarios and vice versa. It's clear that the AI team have a lot on their plate, and we can't wait to check out their progress in the future and maybe take a look down the aforementioned rabbit hole of fauna development. I'm trying to read this. I am dyslexic, but it's not really an excuse, but some things I won't be able to pronounce. Look at that ship. Whoa. That's huge. Huge ship. Massive. I'm not sure what this one is. Anyway, service beacons. Regular deep space travelers will no doubt be familiar with the combat assistance service beacons. A call for help by ambushed and outgunned NPCs. These beacons provide players with the option of engaging in varying combat missions as they travel around the verse. Alpha 3.17.2 brought the extensive overhaul to the whole system that persistent universe gameplay director Tony Zurek says in substantially deeper than it might first appear. Previously based on the one-shot combat encounters with a random selection of low-level ships, Zurek details that the issues with the old system and why it had to change. There was a small amount of variety, difficulty, and reward, but none of it presented much of a challenge. There was no concept of progression. You always had to access the entire range of the scenarios and keep it regardless of how well or badly you performed. The locations of the frequency of these scenarios were hard-coded into data interpreted by the probable volume service and then communicated with the service beacon. Services As a result, nothing ever changed. In any given area, there was always a fixed percentage of a particular type of encounter occurring, regardless of how many scenarios players accepted and won, or what was happening in the quantum simulation, the back-end simulation of the universe. Zervek goes on to say that one of the reasons the features was released in such an early state was because it served as a testbed for some of the low-level functionality of the up-and-coming in virtual AI, which the second iteration of bounty hunting and a lot more will depend on. However, the latest patch of the feature was reworked and the player's experience and existing features in mind. The mission logic was completely rewritten for Alpha 3.17.2 and exploits many gameplay improvements. They have subsequently been added. This includes the extensive use of reputation so that you only gradually gain access to increasingly more difficult and financially rewarding scenarios by successfully completing simple ones. More of the most challenging scenarios now involve multiple capital ships and their fleets attacking an entire armada of freighters, and can likely be won except by groups of players. Bugs relating to sharing beacons with other players were also fixed. Support of the side-state battles against some of the PU's most deadly ships. The fixed encounter possibilities that are gone. The fixed encounter probabilities are gone, and Quantum now dictates where the combat assist beacon will appear, and how they should be configured based on its current state. There's a lot of ongoing development, and the areas of advances can be expected over the next year. The inclusion of the service beacons into Quantum's vast web of economy and gameplay affecting data as an interesting and exciting prospect. And if you've silenced comms requesting combat support so far, now the ideal time to head into the fray and see where it takes you. We'd like to say huge thanks to all the developers who took the time to put out their busy schedule to answer the questions and help us compile the retrospective look into Alpha 3.17.2 key additions. C. Javoris, Elliot Macbley, Player, Captain Crease, Robert Johnson, Amvin Centurion, John Crew, Criminal Delivery Missions, Jan Truffin, Planetary Navigation Mesh, Marius, Ariane, Jennifer Aaron Millar, Francisco and Tony Zervek for service beacons. So, Unification Wars. Not too sure what this is about. Humanity expansion into the stars faced countless obstacles over the centuries, from mental technologies, hurdles, into the encounters with hostile and aggressive alien races. Yet some of the historians say that the most significant obstacles was humanity's unwillingness to set aside centuries of ingrained cultural differences and ally with each other. In 2380, Earth's nations came together and followed the lengthy and contentious negotiations agreed to a previous unfathomable outcome: to unify under one central government that would lead humanity's expansion into space. While many celebrated the creation of the United Nations of Earth, UNE, others decided to fight back, leading to a bloody and contentious 4 years of unrest between 2030-80 and 2030-84. Known as the Unification Wars. So that's what that is. The Stanley Mutiny. The warship Stanley was originally commissioned to put into service by the National Americano in 2369, still in exclusive condition. The battle cruiser ownership and command transferred to the UNE in 2380. More than a third of the crew, including the captain, resigned prior to the transfer after pledging loyalty to their homeland and refusing to join the nascent UNE Navy. New naval recruits were assigned to fill vacated positions in the effort to embody the new multilateral and multicultural makeup of the Navy. Yet these changes agreed to be remaining members of the Americano crew and led to clashes that resulted in multiple disciplinary reports being filed for fighting and insubordination. With rumours swirling that Stanley's Americano crew members would be separated and reassigned to different ships, a contingent of them took matters into their own hands on October 20th, 2380, an armed group of Americano crew members maintained and took control of the ship. Their initial plan was to use Stanley to liberate their country from the tyranny of the UNE by attacking a number of Earth's major cities. If their demands for the return of the Americano sovereignty were not met in a heroic and highly successful operation, the UNE Navy disabled and recaptured Stanley without a single casualty. Those responsible for the mutiny were put on trial. Most were given lenient sentences in show of compassion, but 3 ringleaders received harsh sentences to send a message to other anti-unification sympathisers. Unfortunately, the action of the Stanley crew would only inspire others to follow suit. On December 9, 2380, 2 UNE warships, Panjuani and Cassano, vanished during the routine patrol. The Navy quickly dispatched ships to determine their fate, only to find a search party to be ambushed. The captains and the crews of the Panjuani and Casino had secretly orchestrated a defection, and after repelling the search party, broadcast a message calling on the UNE vessels to join them and rejoining the hegemonic authority of the UNE. Over the following week, 4 more warships would defect to join the loose alliance, once main demand centered on the dissolution of the UNE. However, the group would never fully unify, and each ship continued to operate under its own command and make additional demands specific to its crew's nation of origin, even sometimes the direct opposition of one another. Desperate to not lose any more ships to the mutiny, the Navy took drastic steps, reassigning the crew of all its remaining vessels to ensure people who were from the same former country or had previously crewed together were separated. This slowed its response to neutralising the rogue ships, but some believe it kept more Navy vessels from defecting. Meanwhile, in 6 allied yet independently operated anti-unification warships baited the Navy into skirmishes by advancing towards cities on Earth and Mars, or the jump to Crucial. The Navy would briefly engage the ships but avoid all of the battles. It claimed to be prioritising and protection of civilians and cities, but Navy brass also worried that the destroying of the warships would create martyrs for the anti-unification movement and wanted the warships returned to the UNE, flee undamaged. The Navy's focus on disabling and recapturing the warships frustrated many and allowed the rebellious ships to escape on several occasions. When one skirmish resulted in the major damage of a Navy warship and the loss of 5 crew members, the Navy adjusted its tactics to go on the offensive and began picking off the anti-unification ships rather than waiting for them to threaten territories. 4 were disabled and captured and 2 were destroyed. Panjuani held on to the longest and was finally destroyed in March 22nd, 2381. Yet it would be a long time before war would re-emerge on the new front. Siege of Syrtis. Tensions remained high throughout the middle of 2030-81, with growing contingent of anti-unifications publicly expressing their desire to dissolve the UNE. Intelligence services monitored their chatter and noted that the common brief was that the defecting warships failed in their objectives because they lacked the landing zone to repair and resupply. In June of 2030-81, an intelligence report noted that the frontier systems of the Syrinx on Mars, home to a large contingent of expats from the Samarcadia who opposed the dissolution of the country, had opted their city to anti-unification allies and any former nation. Syrtis' population had dramatically increased and the settlement begun expanding and strengthening its fortifications. When illegally obtained military-grade anti-aircraft turrets were installed in early August, the UNE sent in a military to retrieve the weapons, only to be met with force. The unexpected level of resistance surprised the military, who decided against escalating the incident and endangering Syrtis civilians instead. The military pulled its forces back, encircling Syrtis, and waited. Besides keeping anyone from entering and leaving Syrtis, the UNE military instituted a no-fly zone and blocked transmissions to stymie communications. Early UNE assessment believed that the settlement had strategic food and water reserves, to last 6 months, yet nearly a year later the residents of Syrtes remained defiant and refused to surrender. Despite the settlement's communications being cut off, civilian observers monitored the settlement and the UNE's actions and relayed daily updates on the standoff in anti-unification circles. The incident became known as the Siege of Syrtes and grew into a rallying cry and recruitment tool for the anti-unifications movement, which by now has solidified into a single united group representing people from all former nations of Earth, known as an Anti-Unification Alliance, AUA. Some members of the UNE Council believed the standoff made the government look weak and unable to enforce its laws. Syrtes was subject to, so they ramped up the pressure on the military to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. When residents inside Syrtes refused to negotiate with the UNE, claiming the government had no authority over the settlement, several psychological stressful tactics were deployed, including the blasting of loud music, night to day, aerial bombardment to create a canopy of noise, and light at night to try and exhaust the inhabitants for days on end. None of these ploys convinced the residents of Syrtes to give up and only generated more support for the AUA and ire for the UNE government, the wider civilian population. The UNE Council became convinced that the optics of the standoff were helping the anti-unifications more than anything and ordered the military to end on January 4th, 2083. The military seized the settlement in the middle of the night and after a brief yet bloody battle took control of Syrtes. Unification Wars Medal. The fight for New York City. Bloody end to the situation in Syrtes drew widespread criticism and strengthened support for the Anti-Unification Alliance, which also evolved its tactics and communication methods. Peaceful and persuasive AUE members became the face of the movement. They held rallies, wrote op-eds, and made constant media appearances to promote the position that the UNE was an imperialist and unelected power structure with no real authority over everyday people. Meanwhile, UNE analysts noted the troubling silence coming from the more militant wing of the anti-unification movement and worried something was in the works. They were right. They were right. New York. So this is going to be the base for New York, I think, once they get it done. With measures taken by UNE Navy, purge and disarmament anti-unifications within its rank, the AUA focused on building a fleet of personal ships and modifying them with weapons systems which were uncommon and extremely hard to acquire by civilians of the era. The movement also made inroads to and garnered strong support with the burgeoning militia community. Following unification, many warships deemed too outdated and the UNE Navy were retrained by local government and deployed to patrol ship lanes, aid in humanitarian missions and handle low-level encounters with a built-in criminal element. In early 2084, commanders of the makeshift AUA fleet began secretly meeting with and plotting with captains of some of these aging warships. Unlike previous anti-unification uprisings, theirs would be organised and focused on a single objective. On July 29, 2384, the UNE Navy received word that a militia warship that had vanished the previous week and approaching New York City. While the local air controllers were attempting to contact the ship, it fired upon the Navy ship sent to intercept it and then fled. When the Navy mobilised ships in the region to pursue the rogue warship, the rest of the AUE fleet attacked New York City, heading for the same target, the United Nations Earth Plaza, which housed the main legislative and administrative functions of the new unified government. The mission was simple: destroy the seat of the UNE power and ensuring chaos to convince countries and regions to abandon unified government. Upon realising the true scope of the attack, the Navy recalled most of its ships to come to the defence of the New York City through a small fleets were left to defend the key military installments of Ports Renatus on Mars and Angeli in Croshaw, in case of the attack on New York was a double feint. For hours, the sky above New York City became ablaze in a battle. Residents sought refuge in basements and subways, tunnels, and debris and damaged ships crashed to the city. The Navy rightfully assumed the intended target was the UNE Plaza and put everything to the defense. When it became clear that anti-unifications would be able to overcome the Navy's defense line, they adjusted their tactics and spread maximum fear and chaos by attacking the urban sprawl of the main city. Some of their warships fired randomly upon buildings, while others intentionally crashed into the city instead of the surrounding. With the number of the AUA ships dwindling, several of the rebellion ships fled instead of surrendering. These ships hid in the outer reaches of the Sol system or slipped into the Croshaw, knowing no UNE port would ever give them safe harbour. The crews of these ships would go on to form several well-known outlaw gangs, and despite UNE efforts to bring them to justice, many became infamous for raiding trading lanes through Sol and Croshaw. The fight for New York City finally brought the mainstream anti-unification movement to an end. The random and mass destruction wrought on New York City and its surrounding area angered UNE residents and turned the general public against the movement for good. While there would be some small skirmishes with anti-unifications in the following decades, historians officially considered the fight for New York City as the final battle in the unification wars. The destruction to New York City was extensive, yet many famous and culturally significant locations thankfully survived. Today, many historians credit the massive rebuilding effort, including RSI's decision to build a massive headquarters complex where the largest warships crashed, as key to the modernization of New York City and the leading upgrades to improvements that would solidify the city's status as a political and cultural capital, with one foot firmly in the past and another in the future. While the unification wars saw humanity face great diverse divisions and terrible internal strife, the result coalesced support behind and solidified the sovereignty of a human unified government that would boldly lead the species into a wider universe. So that's the unification wars. So, last page. How the future began. So these are the Zeus spacesuits by RSI. Honor the brave pilots who test flew the first commercial spacecraft with RSI Zeus exploration suit, styled to match the design used centuries ago, but updated with all new technology and conveniences expected by modern day explorers. This limited edition suit is available for 3 distinct colours. So I got the orange one, and I think if you had the £20 package, you got 2 of them, as far as I know. So that is Jump Point. I know I was reading through it and I got, muddled on some words and stuff, but I'm not really a public speaker that reads and talks. So this is the first time I'm doing this. So hopefully it wasn't a boring. Hopefully some people get something out of it where they can just sit and listen to it, where they don't have access to this thing. I like having the membership, the subscription, and I do recommend it because you do get the things like this suit here, and you do get the ship of the month and that, and it also supports, so that's why I like that. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, don't forget to take that pointer, guys, and tickle that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I'm going to do another one when the next one comes out next month. It's going to be every 2 months, but I'll show you the ships I got and the flares I got, as well as going through the book, the magazine. If you don't want me to read it, let me know. If you would like me just to have it on the screen so you can read it yourselves, again, but you can just pause it and turn me down. That's the other option. But at least then it gives you guys that don't have a subscription access to read it. And hopefully I don't get in trouble by Cloud Emporium. Chris knocking on my door with his goons. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, guys, that's me, Dom. We hope you like this, and yeah, we'll see you out in the verse, guys.